And shifting our focus to the Middle East, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken returns to the region. This is his sixth visit to the Middle East since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. And the visit comes as the fate of talks to secure a ceasefire and the release of hostages literally hangs in the balance. Blinken will first make a stop in Saudi Arabia's Jeddah. Then he will meet Egyptian leaders in Cairo to discuss talks brokered by Egypt and Qatar, as well as efforts to get more aid into Gaza.
This is multifold. It's, of course, to push for an agreement on a ceasefire and the release of hostages. As you know, we're intensely engaged on that every single day, and we're doing everything we can to push that forward and to reach an agreement. But it is also to continue the conversations that we started back in January on exactly the question you raised, which is post-conflict Gaza and the arrangements that will need to be made to provide for its governance, for its security, for humanitarian assistance, for its redevelopment.
Now, talks on a potential ceasefire resumed in Qatar just this week. And on Monday, Israel's spy chief David Barnea joined talks with Egyptian and Qatari mediators. However, weeks of negotiations have not yielded an agreement between Israel and Hamas. And now Washington hopes to finalize a deal between the two sides and alleviate the humanitarian crisis that is gripping Gaza. The U.S. has repeatedly called on Israel to allow an increase in the flow of aid into the Palestinian enclave. Meanwhile, an Israeli delegation headed by its defense minister will be visiting Washington to discuss the Rafah operation. Now, according to reports, Washington will present alternative plans for how Israel can continue pursuing Hamas without launching a major ground offensive in Rafah. President Biden is pressuring Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to pull back from a full-scale ground operation in Rafah. Now, before heading to the Middle East, Secretary Blinken said he would pursue conversations on arrangements for governance, security, and redevelopment of post-war Gaza.
So impressed upon Israel the imperative of having a plan for Gaza for when the conflict ends, which we hope will be as soon as possible, consistent with Israel's needs to defend itself and make sure that October 7th can never happen again. There, as you know, we put out many months ago a number of principles in Tokyo regarding the future of Gaza. We stand by those principles, and the challenge now is to make sure that any plan for the future brings them to light. But that will be very much the focus of this visit.
On the ground, however, there is no sign that the war is in fact dissipating. Israeli troops are continuing their raid in Gaza's biggest hospital, Al-Shifa, which they allege Hamas is in fact using. The Israeli army says over 50 fighters were killed and around 300 suspects were taken into custody.